Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a great week so far. Welcome to Opsera's From AI Adoption to AI-Driven Business Outcomes webinar, What to Measure and How to Drive Success. Thank you for joining LTIMindtree, GitHub, and Opsera to learn how you and your organization can bridge the gap between deploying Copilot and achieving enterprise-scale results. To start, just some housekeeping. Today's session is being recorded, and we'll share the recording with all registrants right after the event. And with that, I'm excited to introduce Kumar Chivikula, co-founder and CEO of Opsera, who'll set the stage for today's discussion and introduce our panelists. Over to you, Kumar.
Thank you, Yusra. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. And we have two awesome speakers and from both LTIMindtree and as well as two great partners of GitHub and LTIMindtree. With the honor and privilege to introduce both Casey and KRK. Like Casey is the EVP of Digital Engineering and Assurance at LTIMindtree, responsible for the rollout of the Copilot at the internal employees as well as external customers, plus many other functions. And glad to be partner with LTIMindtree, Casey and team. And next thing is KRK is been part of the journey with the GitHub for the last couple of years. It's been wonderful to work with KRK and team, and he manages the technical solution engineering. Is a director at GitHub for Asia Pac, and myself, Kumar Chivikula, co-founder of Opsera. So thank you all, and love to share some of the interesting and exciting aspects of the AI-driven business outcomes, how the AI adoption is coming along. It's a lot of people top of the mind thing, and we will definitely cover that. Before we dive into the discussion, and I want to just quickly talk about some of the challenges, right? So people think it's a challenge, but it's not a challenge. There's the method to madness in the whole process, how you can roll out the AI. And then the GitHub has a lot of the good best practices. And then LTIMindtree also they can share the best practices. Some of the things that we have done in the past, you start with the basic evaluation, you do the rollout and track the adoption and make sure the developers are happy, tie them back to business outcomes, and make sure that you get in the ROI and productivity. These are all staged approaches, and you can go through that. And we're happy to share the framework and some of the best practices from both GitHub through KRK along with KC to LTIMindtree from internal and external aspects of that. So the reason people think that it's when we start the journey, because there's too many tools in the process, and then people they need to do some pilot and with some boundaries and make sure that right outcomes are there, and make sure to put a governance framework. And because it's not like you just roll out and expect throw up and basically spray and pray type of model, right? You don't want to do that, and make sure that you have a proper planning. And with some of the industry best practices, we're going to talk about it, which will help to unpack the things that you see here. With that, I'll turn it over to panel. The first question that I have is for the KC, and then I'll turn it over to KRK. What are the Copilot adoption trends that you guys have seen it in terms of like what's next in terms of like what you guys see from KC from your standpoint of view?
Sure. Thank you, Kumar. Good evening, good morning. So in LTIMindtree, as we have transitioned from prompt and context engineering ADLC for our developers. It's for abundance of AI without cognitive overhead. So far, we started with 2,000 GitHub Copilot licenses, and now we are operating over 22,000 licenses, supporting multiple enterprises across various industry groups. And we have very noteworthy partnership with GitHub for the last 3 years, and we have achieved high number of certifications. 5 of our offerings are in Azure Marketplace, and we have got 100 plus GitHub programs running across LTIMindtree. Over to you.
Yeah, the KRK, like from your standpoint of view, some of the trends that you see from the industry and what you are saying from the customers you interact. I mean, a lot of exciting stories that you can share.
I think it's quite different and distinct, right? I think we started off on this whole AI story and journey with an AI pair programmer that could type beside you, right? But I think fast forward 3 years since the journey started across all of our organizations, I think we are way beyond trying to prove efficacy. That's no longer the question. There's no longer a proof of show me that AI makes money. That's no longer the question. But I think the question that we are answering now largely across all organizations is, hey, how can I get faster? And how can this agent change what I do today in my organization? How can it drive transformation for me? I think it's shown up in magical ways, right? From in pull requests to code quality to reviews. There's different areas in which there's not only GitHub, but at least the entire ecosystem across different people that are working in this place have actually made it very exciting. There's a lot of innovation going on across all the stages of the SDLC. So I think what's happening right now is sort of this exodus of many different people trying to figure out different parts of that puzzle and trying to get it together. I jokingly remarked that this is the makings of another browser war, right? Where everybody's trying to figure out something new and everybody wants to have the next best thing in new. I think one trend, if I have to pick, is how important the pull request has become. I think you cannot overestimate the importance of how crucial it's over time become, because it's become the single unit of engineering for a lot of these pieces. And to see the amount of innovation coming out of how you can look at metrics, how you can look at tangible outcomes, how you can look at ways people are leveraging, is a great example of how a unit engineering function has sort of transformed into this way of changing the way we look at engineering completely, right? So it's very exciting times to be an engineer. Slightly less exciting to be an engineering leader, but I think together we'll get through this one.
Awesome. That's a great insight. And I totally understand. It's no longer just a name game of like, show me the value. It's about how can I leverage it. If you don't use it, you're missing the boat and you're missing the race for sure. Thank you. With continuation of that, now that you have talked about it and you both talked about the adoption, and how do you drive the business outcomes? Basically, KRK, you briefly touched upon it. I'll turn it over to Casey. And maybe some of the lessons that you guys learned and some of the things you have observed already from your journey in the last year or so. Casey?
Yeah, thank you, Kumar. Yeah, I think as KRK mentioned, it's truly magic as I see it. So as far as LTIMindtree is concerned, we have successfully rolled out GitHub Copilot across our engineering teams, but adoption is not the finish line. It's just a starting point. So the real question is, are we getting business value from the investment? Our measurement framework focuses on three specific business outcomes: velocity, quality, and the experience. So here is what we are doing very differently. We are not just tracking if developers use Copilot, we are correlating usage with cycle time reduction, identifying where bottlenecks persist, and watching for warning signs like declining code quality or rising security vulnerabilities. Most critically, we are listening to our developers. High usage with low satisfaction is leading to an indicator of failure. Tools do not drive outcomes. Our empowered, satisfied developers, they do. And Opsera gives us the integrated visibility to make this real. And we get DORA metrics, pipeline data, quality signals, and developer feedback in one view. We are monitoring and rebaselining these parameters as we come across higher adoption and effective usage by developers. And we use Opsera's unified insights to demonstrate the productivity gains for the enterprises and tie them very clearly with the business outcomes. What our clients would like to hear: time to market, cost optimization, quality of deliverables, and at last, and the most important, overall client satisfaction.
Thank you, Casey. That's like, like not only you to talk about the developer satisfaction, you want to talk about customer satisfaction. Both are equally important because one person, the developer is driving the outcome that customer is using it. That's awesome to hear that. KRK, maybe you can touch upon some frameworks that you guys have, and then what are the framework that you recommend and you suggest and the people when the middle of the journey.
I mean, if I had a penny for every time GitHub is asked for a point of view or an opinion on how do engineering teams or engineering leaders have to look at productivity or measuring use, I think I'd be a very rich person if I collected a penny every time I had to speak about it. The fact of the matter is that a lot of the world looks up to GitHub and Microsoft together as a unit entity to sort of put out a lot of this thought leadership forward. I think we're going to take it at thought leadership as it is, right? So I think we've been at it for a bit of time. Of course, we love Google for the fact that they came out with DORA metrics and the way they really looked at CI/CD. And one of the things that we've realized with evolution over time with DORA metrics was that DORA started becoming increasingly a CI/CD metric that focused on a lot more deployment level metrics. And it's really a cool tool to use if you're very deep into the CI/CD world, and all DevOps teams love that metric. I love it too. I think we created a change by bringing out space metrics in the late 2019s, and one of our core underlying reasons of why we came out with space metrics as GitHub and Microsoft was that we realized that one of the core pieces of space was that one of the core pieces of DORA was that it put a lot of focus on the CI/CDs and pipeline itself, but it forgot the developer a little bit. It forgot the fact that there's humans behind computers that write code, and there's engineering leaders and teams that drive that progress. And overall, we need to be able to measure them. And rightly, like Casey pointed out in the LTIMindtree story, right? So state metrics became that sort of predecessor for a sort of a forward-thinking attitude of, hey, how do we look at this metric as sort of a composite number of a lot of those things? And a lot of you might have heard me speak at different sessions where I speak about space metrics a lot, and I speak about it. And the latest school of thought from GitHub side is what we call our GitHub engineering system success playbook. It's been out there for a few months now. It's a piece of thought leadership where we look at it a three-step framework of how you can go about evaluating what works for you. Um, Very humbly, I think every business is like a special snowflake, right? You have your own ways in which your developers work, you have your own pipelines and flows, and you have your own release cycles and timelines, and your product teams and pressures and revenue goals are very different from another organization's product teams and revenue goals. And the unique characteristics of the people, the leaders, the processes, the tools changes the way every organization interacts with all of these surfaces. So our approach is to sort of give everyone a wide ranging framework that has sort of indicative areas on what you can measure. So we've taken three areas which we think are very important: quality, developer experience, and happiness, and velocity, as the LTIMindtree has correctly captured it. So, and to sort of then figure out a way to correlate them to overarching business outcomes, right? And then if you do it across a loop where you identify it and then evaluate what is happening and then implement it and then sort of do it again and again and again over a bunch of, say, agile cycles, you then come out with sort of something that works for you, that your board likes to hear about, and keeps everybody happy overall around. And I think in a lot of our engagements, especially when I speak about Opsera because of this webinar, of course, we've seen a lot of this value driven through a lot of our customers who work with Opsera, and LTIMindtree is a fabulous example of a similar customer who's used the same sort of a school of thought to sort of look at tangible business outcomes that drives their results that can overarchingly push business outcomes for them.
Yeah, I think this you greatly put it because KRK, like I think this is the Git engineering system success playbook because with AI paid programming, AI assisted development, right? It's no longer just what was worked is a metric that you want to use. You need to use it, but also add additional things so you can bring the completeness of inner loop and outer loop. DORA became outer loop metric, and inner loop is what you guys are bringing together. And glad that we contributed to that and also being part of that. And we also just introduced the extension to what you guys have developed, and we brought the inner loop and outer loop. Inner loop is building the product, outer loop is shipping the product. Most of the work that you just talked about it falls in inner loop: developer happiness, developer experience, making sure that the code has been generated, PRs, commits, and story points, lead time, cycle time, plus along with the good old DORA metrics that we have, combine them together and tell the story in a unified way, which is what Casey talked about in the across LTM and the customers as well. So glad to be part of the journey, and then this is the framework that we have, and happy to share offline more of that. But it's about the now that we talked about both the frameworks that they feed to each other. We want to go back and have Casey to talk about some of the metrics that they've seen it, some of the aspects that they've seen with internal and external with the customers, and maybe share some of the examples and metrics and what the journey looks like. Casey.
Yeah. So we started, as I said, with 2,000 licenses, and now operating with almost 22,000 licenses. And this happened rapidly in the span of past 5-6 months across multiple verticals and enterprises. And we have established the baseline and benchmarks with help from Opsera and able to show the clear ROI to LTIMindtree clients. Very specifically, from my perspective, what I have observed is that there's a clear 20% growth in commits. as well as we observed 23% increase in peer velocity. Extremely good measurements to demonstrate that how we are moving, how we are achieving the velocity. And what we also do is that we use this baseline and benchmark, and sort of every month we try to fine tune it so that we can bring the best value for our internal engagements as well as our clients. And what it has enabled us to do, now we are in a position to provide our clients with productivity linked outcome, which a lot of our clients are very eagerly looking for. So with help from Opsera, we have been enabled to measure it and to share that with our clients also. So it's a great journey, and we look forward to having more such instances in future.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, no, I remember working with you guys last year, and we grew significantly where you are. And I think thanks to GitHub and as well as LTIMindtree to put the pedal to the gas and see how you guys accelerate the journey now for the customers as well as your internal employees. So, question is, since Casey you brought up the point about couple of some of the customers, right? Maybe you can touch upon the some of the journey that you guys have with one or two customers. It's up to you. Like, we want to be sensitive around that. You can hide the names, just share some insights to the audience, and it'll be beneficial for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about two recent cases. One is one of our large American multinational fast casual restaurant chain based in New York. They have recently reported 25% overall productivity gain with last 5 months of AI intervention, and specifically based on the GitHub Copilot usage. One of our large CPG clients, where we have seen that current acceptance rate is 35%, right, with 680 active ID users and 1,340 chat users within just 3 months of usage. Sometimes the actual users, they take a little bit of time, initial handholding, adoption incentive, all those things are rolled out. But we are seeing great result, and while I'm calling it out, they're definitely recognized by our clients. We are working across multiple clients, and we are expecting such instances we'll be able to bring in near future with a lot more specific data points about how we have achieved the productivity gain and how we have enabled our clients to get to their goals faster, cheaper, and probably with higher quality.
It's awesome. Like, glad to hear the real world examples and with quantified numbers. And I'm sure like KRK have more things to talk about. Maybe like I'll just turn it over to KRK. Any comment? I know you've been working closely with the journey of not only LTIMindtree, many other customers. Anything that you want to add? Anything you want to share from the what Casey just shared?
Absolutely. So I think before I go to those things, I think one of the things that we need to highlight, and this is a fantastic case of, spectacular leadership from LTIMindtree, right? The fact of the matter remains that a lot of this depends on organizational culture, right? You got to give a huge prop to where it's due with LTIMindtree, and they are bringing that sort of uh, thought leadership opinion also with the clients that they're working, because um, what you do internally is a fantastic reflection of your capability, right? For a giant SI like LTIMindtree. So to see how they were able to band together and be like, hey, I am customer zero. I will showcase that this is how I am doing it, so that when the customers look at the way I've done it with internal projects, they get a proof of faith. They get a show of, hey, this is a
Yeah.
capability that someone like this brings along. It one showcases capability at a very strong scale. Two, it also gives customers a sense of, hey, faith and belief in the fact that there are strong, well grounded metrics that they bring to the table, right? A lot of the other organizations that we're working with are on similar lines as what Casey has already spoken about. We are working with multiple other solutions integrators who are also our partners, for example, who are looking at similar results. I think the industry-wide average of an acceptance rate is now hovering in sort of the 30 to 32 to 33%. Anything that's over it is now considered very strong acceptance rates of a very strong AI-capable workforce. We
Yeah.
are also seeing that velocity increase is always over 20% across most of our use cases. We recently worked with a large customer in India in the banking financial services space, and they started noticing more than 20% in their PR velocity increases as well. So um, these numbers are not just numbers on marketing speak. These are real, actual, tangible, fungible metrics that are grounded in reality that people can actually experience today. All it takes is one commitment to change, two, an organizational culture to sort of want to affect this change, three, a need to measure, monitor, implement, improve them over time, right? And if these come together, I think the promises of what the AI era brings become less of promises and more of truisms for all of us.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail in the coffin. I think the LTIMindtree and KC leadership, and we've seen we got the first seat in the row to watch the journey. And then yes, they established the benchmark. It's a cultural thing. Kudos to them, and the way not only established internally, the external use cases as well, customer journey as well. Amazing to see the results. But we attest. We also work with other customers. These numbers are astonishing, like compared to some of the things that we see in a short span of time. Like we've seen it with other customers, but in a short span of time and how they accelerated the journey, it's a change management culture and the leadership commitment. Many things comes together. Awesome to see that. And again, kudos to LTIMindtree and for the leadership team and KC for representing and giving the opportunity. So with that, I would like to just maybe take 5 minutes to more of a if I want to talk about just Opsera, we can given the just to showcase how we can help other people and give you 5 minute demo before we talk about the Q&A. Okay, if that is just quickly take the conversation to the next level, and I will just introduce quickly a couple of things. So where we do the inner loop, outer loop, which we talked about is KRK and KC. You can see the quality, velocity, that developer experience, that all the things that KRK talked about, KC talked about, we have it in the measure. It's not about just data measurement. It's about establishing baseline. It's like going to gym. You go to gym, you have with certain goals, and if you go for 3 months, you achieve your goals, and after that you don't go to gym for 3 months. Guess what happens? You know that what outcome is going to be, right? You want to make sure this journey, it's a something that you want to adhere to that on a daily basis, so that you know you can improve upon yourself, follow the routine and your journey as well. So along with it, we just don't want to talk about data. We want to prove the value and what leaders care about it, why they care about it. You talked about KRK, talked about space. We not only with DevX and space and DORA, they all have to come together to bring this total story together, right? And it's not insights. It's about action. How can you show the actions through reasoning agent? One of the things that we have done, which we're going to demonstrate, that not one is just to show in the static dashboards, but also interacting with the dashboards with AI. If you don't talk about, like, to your point, without talking about AI, day doesn't go by. If I use how many times I use AI, I'll make more money than what you're making money through productivity gains and whatnot. So same thing with it. We'll work with many stack. We'll pull the live metrics from many aspects. And then this is the reasoning agent, which I'm going to show the live demo to you guys. And as part of that, what it is reasoning agent is doing is you can talk about it as an executive looking at the dashboard. Tell me something. What if scenarios? If I increase the velocity and increase my number of developers, reallocate the developers, if we increase acceptance, what is the scenario across multiple dimensions? Is what we're going to demonstrate. That this is one of a unique aspect of Opsera, and which is very helpful for the people to use it along with GitHub Copilot and DORA and Space Metrics. With that, I'll shift it to my desktop. 1 second. I'll just come back and share the things. Okay, I hope you can see my screen now. So think about it like we talked about inner loop and outer loop. In this case, inner loop is nothing but building the product one more time. Shipping the product is outer loop. GitHub Copilot is the center of the equation right now, because that is what is drives everything else on the side. You have various aspects. There's not only metrics. We took some of them from ESS, the GitHub ESS playbook as well. We gave the metrics in terms of how the Copilot is adding the adoption and accepted line suggested, and how the people are taking with that, how the throughput is coming together. When throughput is increasing, now you want to talk about how the velocity is coming together. When the velocity is there, how the quality is coming together. For example, I have this Hummingbird AI. I just clicked on it, and I see that my acceptance rate hovering around 25.73. If I increase my acceptance rate from 25.73, the exact same thing, percent to 35%. What is the impact my throughput, velocity, and quality. So what it does is Hummingbird AI, I'll increase the screen size for you to see it. It analyzes the multiple dimensions now because we have collected the data, and then it gives a summary of, creates an existing baseline as 25.73 and establish a new baseline and give you the trend analysis and recommendations and let you ask questions. Now it's instantaneously, it pulled the data together across. I did not ask for the, let it finish, it'll just summarize it. What it did, I asked for velocity, throughput, and quality. I didn't mention that it's PR merged by developers, deployment frequency, or lead time, and the defect density, code coverage. It picked the information related to that and created a baseline. What is the projected value? What is the expected impact? In real time, it generates graphs and trends for you. How the trend is going to be over a period of time across all of the dimensions, and what are the recommendations and follow-up questions you can have. This is very unique feature we want to bring in so that not only you understand the dimensions of the Copilot and the Copilot, the GitHub Advanced Security, along with the various other aspects. Now, I want to just take this journey to the Copilot journey, right? The Copilot, we have many aspects because many dimensions you can measure and slice this one. One is the developer usage, Copilot Pulse, code-based activity. One of the unique thing we do is, if you are using Copilot, not using Copilot, we can differentiate between what is a Copilot versus non-Copilot, like especially with non-AA programmer versus AA programmer. You can get the data from how the Copilot programmer is performing versus non-AA Copilot programmer, right? We can go back to GitHub organizations, trends. Now I'm here. I want to see the impact. I want to see the acceptance rate, developer activity, and then Copilot contribution rate. You can also see the usage based on for example, I see the contribution. I can go look at the data, various languages, and how each of them is contributing developers, where the Copilot acceptance rate is coming by language, by the team, and what have you. Now I want to pull the Hummingbird AI in general. Now I want to just ask a different question this time around. So I'll ask the question slightly differently. If I allocate 50 more developers, what is my time, cycle time? Because I don't know, I want to just understand from the AI perspective. It summarizes information, it looks at the data, and takes the existing data into consideration and establish a new baseline, and then tell you what is the current baseline, what's the new baseline, and give you the summary and be able to ask questions. This is a way, not only looking at the dashboard, interacting with the dashboard, and what would be the cycle time looks like with 50 developers, and how the graphs are coming together with current and 50, and the additional 50, and it also gives the additional questions, recommendations. The idea being is, we don't want to just have you, and as an executive, we want to not just look at the dashboard, but also as a leader, interact with it, make inference of that, take the recommendations. You can also ask questions around that. So we provide the comprehensive list of things: DevOps, DORA, and then a sprint velocity, and GitHub Advanced Security, and bunch of other things. Leadership dashboard, we talked about it. We also have a gas dashboard that covers the GitHub Advanced, which is LTIMindtree is using it. They're using GitHub Copilot Advanced Security. They'll be able to understand not only the reason Casey mentioned quality security, because we're able to connect the dots between how the developers are generating the code, quality aspect of the security aspect of it. They will compare and contrast the data. So with that, I'll just bring it back to the panel and the discussion, and when we'll go back to the Q&A as well. Just give me 1 second. Let me bring the slide deck back. Want to have a KRC and KC to participate in the next set of the things, and so we went through the demo, and obviously while we have it, I want to have a couple of questions we have, and I'll start with KC first, and we'll go to the KRC, KRK as well. So you looked at the tools, KC, like you've been familiar with Opsera, you've been using the data points, and you're making some decisions for that, for engineering leaders. What are the key things, besides reporting, what are the key decisions you're able to infer from here? And you touched upon velocity, quality, and we add some color to that, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, I think engineering managers, they play a very, very crucial and pivotal role, not only in adoption, making people understand the value of it. So for us, we are treating the overall adoption piece more like a strategic initiative. And what we implement is rigorous measurement, very clear success criteria, and the discipline to pivot if the data shows that we are not delivering business value. And I'm very proud to say that whatever we do internally, because as a SI, as a GSI, we always need to be ready with our platforms along with the standard software that our clients should be using. And everything what we do internally, keeping client demands in mind, everything is configured in such a way so that we can measure the business value that we are expected to produce for our clients. So to conclude, that's how we have transitioned from that initial adoption phase to genuine competitive advantage for our business. We very proudly talk about how we have adopted, we can demonstrate it for anything we do for our clients. So that's how we are we have adopted and we are going on. And I'm sure in near future we'll see a lot more value coming out of this overall integration with Opsera and our usage of GitHub Copilot.
Thank you, Casey. That's super helpful. Appreciate you sharing the insights. So next question for organizations that are in the journey, they're all in the middle of the journey besides adoption, right? What part of the journey where you see KRK like they're taking a little longer and try to take it to the next level? You talked about agents and as well as the Copilot journey. Plus, what are the maybe suggestions and where do you see them getting stuck and how do you advise them to move forward?
This is going to be an oxymoron, but the reality of it is, I think LTIMindtree is in a very advanced state of maturity, right, when it comes to their processes. But the overwhelming majority of enterprises that I work with are in a pretty nascent state where when I ask them, hey, how do you measure developer productivity today? I tend to receive more silent, awkward glances across a room filled with engineer leaders than anything else, right? Which underlines a cultural problem across engineering leadership, where people don't traditionally look at measuring engineering leadership, engineering velocity as sort of a critical business deliverable line. Because more often than not, what ends up happening is that it ends up becoming bundled into your product metrics and revenue metrics and everything, and it is sort of measured as revenue velocity. It doesn't get measured as engineering velocity, which is exactly what all of these hundreds of years of engineering has taught us, right? Is that you have to measure a process by how that process builds an end product. And in our case, it's software, which is built as, and it's an entire process that needs to go through it, right? So my faith is that I think we need to become more mature in starting to measuring what developer productivity is first before we question efficacy of tools and all that. Is what I would humbly request all of the people that are listening to this is, if you don't have a system of measuring today, take Opsera for a spin. Take Space Matrix, take DORA metrics for a spin. See what does it look like for you today, right? And then take a call about, hey, when you use AI and infuse AI into your journey, how does that then transform it? See, the foundation of everything, and in the first slide that Kumar showed, right, is that a baseline is the foundation to showcasing improvement, and that's the foundation of every metrics strategy initiative that we ever do as leaders, right? So, strongly urge everyone to take the first step forward. That's very important. And I think once you take that baby step forward, then I think everything else sort of falls into place. And kudos to platforms like Opsera that make it incredibly easy for you to sort of do that in a couple of button clicks.
Yeah. Appreciate it. I couldn't agree with you more, KRK. I think one is we need to have established the baseline benchmark. I think in this example that resonates really well with LTIMindtree, they were very conscious about it. I want to see my baseline and benchmark, then increase the number of users and tested the waters with increase from 2,000 to 5,000, what happened? 5,000 to 10,000, what happened? What are the levers I can dial and up and down, right? So, which is very crucial. Once you know where you are, it's easy to measure. That goes back to my example I gave, gym, right? You need to know where you are. I want to reduce my weight. It doesn't happen automatically. I have to put some effort and I need to work through the process. I have to follow the regime, right? That's what it is. And then the second thing that we will also talk about frameworks we talked about, right? Okay. There are in maybe 3-4 years back, the frameworks only one or two. Now we have enough frameworks that are available, GitHub ESS, Space, and allow DevX and DORA and a bunch of other things. We bring all of them together and we encourage people to try it out for sure. Thank you for putting the plug for Opsera. The last question with that I'll lead up to the last question, right? So to both of you, KC and KRK, I know maybe repetitive, but it's best to recap the things. What are the key metrics that you recommend for people to focus on it in the journey? Not just the, I know lines of code is something we discourage people to do it. That was an old school way of doing it. But in the code assistant that came in, humans and code agents are writing the code. You pushing the code from code commit to code deploy into the cloud. What are the key measurements and key things that you touch upon it? Maybe we'll start with KC and we'll go to KRK.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So, yeah, as I mentioned before, we are just not tracking the developers' use of Copilot, right? We are correlating essentially the cycle time reduction, which is very, very crucial. And we have seen as soon as our clients see that, they feel very comfortable with the adoption. And along with that, there may be bottlenecks that are coming up, whether they're persisting, and definitely the warning signs of any declining code quality, right? A lot of time when the code is getting auto-generated, the validation, the verification, whether they're being done appropriately, and in the process, whether there's any sign of rising security vulnerability. In what we have done so far, in my opinion, if these aspects are taken care of, then definitely the end goals or the OKRs, KPIs that the clients generally look for, that faster time to market or faster time to value with optimized cost and definitely with highest quality, that would lead to the overall customer satisfaction, they can be achieved. As engineering team, the first 4 or 5 things I talked about, we are very focused on making sure the final value for our end clients are being produced.
Thank you, KC. KRK, I know you touched upon it, few things, but I think summarize it back to our audience.
I mean, it's uncanny because I think in preparation for this webinar as well, and I think as me and Kumar and Casey were also interacting. So one of the things that really piqued my interest was, the whole concept of pull request being an incredibly important part of how we do engineering today, right? In software engineering today. So um, one of the schools of thought that I'm putting forward is, treat your pull request as a product, right? Both for engineering leaders as well as for engineers that are writing the pull requests, right? Um, um, if you're an engineering leader, I highly encourage you, if you haven't done it in a long time, go into your code base and look at a pull request from one of your teams. Trust me when I tell you the number of times I've taken an engineering leader down this path and I've had them look at it, and the kind of head scratching they do, like, wait, they're doing this, is so uncanny, right? So there's a lot of things that you can improve at a pull request level, right? You can a PR velocity is a very strong foundational metric that can actually impact really well. And I think we've seen that from a lot of the studies, and you can see that in the dashboards as well, right? So um, it could be anything from review time. How much time does it take for a senior developer to review a junior developer's work? It could be how much time does it take for an AI tool that you're using to actually put in a comment that's meaningful? What is acceptance rates for those comments? And what is the time it takes for all of your quality tools to finish running? What time does it take for GitHub Advanced Security to finish its scans, right? So you have an ability to sort of influence a lot of these things at one level. So my takeaway would be treat your pull request as a product. If you haven't seen a pull request in a long time as an engineering leader, go back down to that pull request and take a look at it and get started there.
Really, yeah, this is so fascinating. Like, to be honest with you, like, KC, KRC, there's so much to learn, so much to look up to, and the journey is fascinating. And also, there's so much innovation is happening in the market, and especially AI and AI adoption. I think being that LTIMindtree being the forefront of the journey and being the pioneer in adopting and increasing the uses of that, it's very fascinating to see. And KRK, thank you for sharing the industry trends and insights that you talk to many people and your team talks to many people, summarizing and encapsulating all the thoughts. I'm glad to be part of a journey with both of you, and truly enjoyed the conversation. And thank you, KRC. Thank you, KRK, for your time and support. And turn it over to Yusra.
Thank you so much to the panelists for the engaging discussion. We hope that you and your organizations pulled takeaways from our speakers and their experiences. We will be sharing the recording to registrants shortly after the event so you can reference in the future. Thanks again all for joining, and we hope to see your faces and your names at upcoming Opsera events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.